Welcome to Finance Leaders Retirement Insights, the broadcast where we sit down with thought leaders in the world of finance who reveal their unexpected wisdom on the issues impacting retirement.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Finance Leaders. Today we're here with Shaunelle Roeber, and we're going to learn a little bit about her business and how she got into it. Hi, Shaunelle.
Well, hello. How are you today?
Great. Welcome.
I'm glad to
we'll
be
start
here.
off with tell us a little bit about how you got started in the world of finance.
I'd like to say it actually started way back in my roots. I am a rarity in this world where I have and grew up with parents that both went to college, which was highly unusual for in that day and age. And
Sure.
It's because they're both very, very smart with numbers. The real crux of it is, after we get to that a little bit more, is that my father is actually a retired IRS auditor. So not only did I grow up around two very brilliant parents that were very smart with numbers, but also I got bitten by the bug to go on to be an accountant. At least that's what I started at the University of Nebraska, and ended up with my business degree with an emphasis in accounting, but I added marketing to it just to have a little bit more dimension and not spend my whole life in front of a computer.
Well, it makes sense that you would have some interest in tax strategies with a tax auditor father.
Absolutely. I'd like to share that anytime I'm meeting with clients and others, because it is something that was talked about on a regular basis at the dinner table, and the tax strategies and understanding the challenges and seeing it through that lens as well. And it's kind of fun to joke about the fact that we don't talk about evading taxes. We talk about using strategies and having the taxes actually work and our knowledge of the tax codes in our favor.
Yeah, awesome. Well, in a sea of financial advisors that are often kind of perceived as undifferentiated, what is the thing that sets your business apart from other financial professionals in the industry?
The way I look at it is that it is a very specified niche of what people such as myself and what our teams do, is because it's a blend of knowledge in accounting and taxes and a blend of understanding financial planning, and elevating it to a whole different level where it's looking at it from 1,000 feet as a puzzle, as a problem to solve to help to minimize taxes. It's almost like being the paper in rock, paper, and scissors. It's that piece of paper that kind of floats down over the top of all of the disciplines in a way that, instead of everybody working in their own specified lane, there's someone such as myself or someone on my team that is looking at the whole picture.
Well, that's a big deal, I think, in this business, because there are a lot of folks out there that work with, I won't name them, but lots of well-known national kind of financial advisory firms. And often they're really kind of cookie cutter advice. And what I've found over the years of working with financial advisors over 25 years is that many kind of ignore the tax issue. It's sort of the elephant in the room, but nobody ever does any proactive planning with it. So it's really unique in your practice that you have this laser focus on taxes, obviously inspired by your father.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was musing about that not too long ago, that one of the other things when I was back in high school even, I got put into a special program that focused on problem solving. And the idea between the three of us that were set aside to be in this program was to see if we learn how to do puzzles and different type of logic problems in a certain way, if it would enhance our math skills and our performance. And it's very much like what is so exciting about what I do now, and bringing that type of skill, that type of thinking, where it's not traditional. It is a bigger picture look at everything, but also starts to figure out, okay, where do we want to end, and how do we get there, and what levers do we pull with the other professionals that are still included in the picture in order to achieve the goals that we're looking for.
Well, thank goodness you're not on the tax auditor side. You're actually on the good side, trying to help people keep more of their own money, right?
It just makes me know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right?
So the next question I have for you really is, obviously there are folks out there that might be looking to speak to someone about their financial situation. And I know from experience, and you probably encountered this quite a bit, that a lot of folks find that it's stressful, maybe even a bit scary, to have your financial life examined by a stranger. And so that potential client might feel exposed in their initial meeting with you because maybe they've never done this before and gotten somebody to take a look at their entire financial life and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And how do you help address this client or prospective client's fears that they might have about working with a financial expert and kind of disclosing all the good, bad, and ugly of their financial situation?
It starts from the very beginning in terms of setting the tone for how do people work together and how do we communicate. I typically don't go out to people and say, you must do this. I wait for people to say, I'm intrigued, I'd like to hear more. And in that case, then it starts off as just a conversation. There's no obligation, there's no pressure. Typically, it starts with like a 15-minute phone call when we connect and set aside that time to see if possibly this is something that might be of interest that would help. And I set that stage right away, that at the end of the conversation, we know what kind of direction we want to go, whether we want to continue the conversation and start to put together what it could look like on paper, or is it best that we just step back and wait maybe for another time, or allow someone maybe to find someone else that they would rather work with. We don't like to think like that. I like to make it an inviting atmosphere. However, we understand, and I understand, that it's not something, it has to feel like the right match. What's important is that uncovering what the real goals are, what's missing in the picture that causes that interest. What is it about something like this sounds like something that might be suitable or something to be worth investigating? And then we start talking about goals and what kind of preparations have been made at this time. But we can take it at a pace that's comfortable. And again, like I said, there's no obligation. It's a conversation, because I always just feel honored that somebody has come to me and said, I really want to know more about what you do and how maybe it could help me.
So for the prospect or potential client, it's a little bit like going on a first date for coffee. So it should be a very relaxing, kind of low pressure environment, and you find out more and find out if you're a good fit for each other before you go a little deeper into the financial details.
Absolutely. And what's also important is that we're not talking about starting from scratch. We're not talking about wiping the slate clean and having to do a major overhaul. What we do with the strategies is that we take the pieces and meet the person where they're at to see what can possibly be done to move this forward and to help minimize somebody's taxes.
Well, that's, I think, an important thing too, because I think sometimes people are afraid that, yeah, you're going to scrap everything they've done up to this point and say that's all wrong. That isn't necessarily the case. You're just looking for ways to help improve upon what they've already built.
Right, and that also helps to alleviate the pressure that it's not a monumental task. that this isn't something that's going to be painful, it's going to be helpful. And if we don't have to start from scratch and say this isn't a good situation, we're fine tuning and making something that might be already a really good plan even better.
Yeah, that's a little less intimidating than maybe throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they say, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the industry is always changing. Obviously, the tax code is dynamic. How do you stay up with the latest trends and changes in finance and communicate that to your clients?
I find it very interesting to be in the position that I'm in because I work with people all across the spectrum. I work with people that are more traditional, that still get their news from watching the evening news, still watching that 10 o'clock local news show. And then a lot of people that are very involved with social media. So I find myself having kind of a mix of keeping up. I've got different news shows that I typically watch to get the finance. I have different things that I get through Twitter and also through notifications, the Yahoo Finance, as well as I do stay up even on the social media because it's interesting when we start talking about what can happen in trends and what becomes something that is being driven by social media and influencers to share and impart knowledge. So it's a little bit of a mix of both in order to understand where people are getting their news, to understand how to help translate and make sense of it, because I find that that's a challenge that people have too, is that how do I sort out what to believe? How do I sort out all this information that's coming at me? And that's something else that's very important if we take this journey, is understanding where that's coming from and helping to define what and make sense of some of the things that are out there. Because once somebody decides to take a financial journey, then it seems like you're kind of inundated with a bunch more information. And it's important to have somebody that's working for you and on your side to help hold your hand through the journey and make sense of things.
Yeah, I think one of the hard parts about being a prospect or a prospective financial planning client is that you might not have a lot of clarity about what's possible. You might not know what you don't know, so you don't even know the right questions to ask. So it really helps to have somebody that's an expert that can guide you through that and help you get clarity about where you're at, what can be done to get you where you want to go.
Absolutely.
So would you have an example of a client that you've worked with that you felt had a particularly challenging situation and you were able to come up with a solution for them?
I do. I have several that I can think of. One is a fairly recent couple that I worked with. They were actually in their late 70s and worked and worked and worked all their life. Actually, he even served in the military and felt very much in tune with caring about our government and our country, mostly our country, but didn't want to, now that they were starting to see how many and what percentage of their dollars were going to go to taxes, that it was almost painful for them to know that they were going to, of their, and the figures are a little bit rounded in this example, but eventually nearly half of their 1.2 million was going to end up going in taxes, depending on the path that they continued to go on. And that made them sad. Made them sad for a lot of reasons, all these hard-earned dollars. They've never felt like they didn't have money. They always felt comfortable. But as they started to look, as I said, they're in their late 70s, not only less dollars for them to enjoy, but also the next challenge was making sure that they were pleased with the estate and the legacy planning too, and having it be as equal for their children as possible.
And I'm guessing, even though they sound like they were very patriotic, they didn't necessarily want Uncle Sam to be the beneficiary. of their estates.
Precisely, that is exactly the case, right?
Yeah.
They did not want to pay those taxes, and they were just sick. They didn't really quite see it coming until they were getting into the stages where they were starting to roll their funds out. And it was just jarring to them, astonishing how much of their money was going to be going to taxes, and had been for the few years prior.
And so the plan that you devised for them had a transformational effect from a tax standpoint then?
Precisely. So we laid out, because they were in their late 70s, we laid out pretty much a 4-year plan, kind of a plan A, plan B. In this case, I did roll up my sleeves and work directly with their financial advisor, because this has been someone that they've been working with for over 20 years. We also picked up the phone and talked to the accountant too, because it was very important to consider the strategy on the rollout and keeping them within a certain tax bracket so that we weren't doing too many things at once and causing extra taxes by not keeping an eye on the ball on the tax bracket effects. And then of course there are some effects with even considering Medicare in that age group too. Sure. And what can happen.
Well, that's a fun scenario where you were able to put someone in a much better position that was, on track to give half of their wealth to the government, not through any planning, just doing what they were doing. That was the track they were headed.
I was particularly excited working with this couple because they had really no idea what possibilities there were. And they had done so much planning over the years. They had done all the right things. And here they are in their late 70s, and they were still open to ideas that might not be as familiar to people. Mm-hmm. And we're willing to sit down and listen to what kind of strategy could be developed to help hit all their goals.
Well, that's great. Great story. Well, I know you've already touched on how you help your clients gain clarity about their current situation in the future. Can you talk a little bit about, how you really help uncover what it is a client's needs are or wants are? Because I know a lot of folks may not really be clear on that. And maybe they're not even clear on where they want to go. How does your process help them with that?
It's like becoming friends in this process, because we're talking about money and what makes people feel secure. And it's also near and dear to a person's heart, as well as the root of how a person's going to be able to have their goals. And once we understand that we're not going to start all over, but we're going to take a magnifying glass to the current place and then start to address where we want in the future. That said, that's where the friend part comes in, because the meeting of the minds of where we want to go helps it to become more of a vision. It's baby steps, honestly, just like when I mentioned that the first phone call is just about getting to know, see if this is something that might actually work. And then we start looking at doing something like a draft run of what the numbers can look like, and keeping it with the numbers at this stage. Here's what this is, here's what that is, here's what the potential is, and then to start to determine if that's a direction that we're going to head in, if this seems to make a lot of sense, if this is exciting. It actually should be exciting. In most cases, I kind of downplayed that a little bit ago with the couple in their late 70s, but they were excited about the fact that they were not going to be wasting dollars and spending dollars and giving them to the government, and they found a way where they didn't have to. So we create that excitement, and then we start to put the polish on it with more hard numbers, more of the steps that are going to get us to that goal.
So it sounds like your process isn't just a bunch of numbers like a lot of people might think about working with a financial expert. This is kind of aligning the numbers with their goals and values and dreams and making sure that their money's doing what they want most.
Yes, that is the case, because one of the things that happens so often in the industry, when I was mentioning some of the other disciplines in financial services, CPAs get lost in numbers. Traditional financial advisors are often focused very much on the numbers. What we do is we look at each of these different channels and what the client has done, and we come back up and we pull out those emotions that go with it to help to say, okay, we've got all these things here. Now, how can we, without adding any more dollars to the picture, in most cases, move dollars and still find dollars and help people to be able to enjoy more of the retirement savings or more of their current wealth now and then later, and not be wasting it in tax dollars or watching it go away in tax dollars.
So for most people that come into your office, it sounds like it's actually kind of a fun exploration instead of a painful, spreadsheet experience.
Oh, for me especially, I'm just like, hey, let's just see what we can find, and that's what the goal is. The goal is to unearth that aha, and take some of the stress out. In most cases, there's a large percentage of people, no matter where they're at in their retirement planning, where they're at in their wealth strategies, that still have maybe concerns that they're not going to be able to live life the way they want. And once we start to divert funds and move funds and find solutions where we can start to see 5-6 figures more that we can enjoy in everyday living or in the future, it's exciting for everyone.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference, obviously, in how they live over time, in retirement. Well, I know you do business with folks nationwide. I'm sure you probably run into people that have some misconceptions about what it means to untax their retirement or their retirement income. How do you help them understand, what untaxing their retirement is, and what are some of those misconceptions people might have?
I find that there's 3 primary misconceptions that are pretty specific across the board. And that's another thing is this should be a fun and happy process. So not getting too caught up in the numbers helps to have that joy, so to speak, of making a move like this. Because again, it can be stressful to be doing things with money. One of the most common misperceptions is that people feel like maybe they can't afford to have a team like Gates or Bezos or any politician that everybody feels like isn't paying enough in taxes. The feeling that I can't, as an ordinary middle-class American citizen, have a team that's going to be that smart so that I'm paying the least amount of taxes. But there are, and our strategies do help to bridge that gap for sure. The idea too, there's some feeling that this has to be too good to be true. It's maybe illegal. It's not illegal. It's understanding how to do and use the tax codes to your benefit. And so these things become known and more familiar as we step through and show with the numbers too to support that. And then the other question that's asked very often is, why have I not heard about this before? Why am I not informed? Why is this something that's not even more well known by others in the financial industries? And a lot of it is because it's not the easiest to understand. It takes, I think, special, and I'm not trying to speak out of turn, speaking about my colleagues too. It takes a special type of not only the strategies, but understanding the strategies, a special type of thinker who can actually piece these things together and help to even communicate it with other people, such as financial advisors and accountants, as to this is where we want to go and why we want to go there. We need your help and input here.
So I think, just to kind of summarize that, you're sort of saying that a lot of people don't think that having access to an expert is within their reach, whether it's financially or maybe they don't have enough assets to be considered someone you would work with, that sort of a situation. And then
True.
also, because of the complexity of these ideas, a lot of people, have a misconception that, your average advisor might know about it, but they don't. And it takes somebody that really is willing to kind of dive in and learn how to share this information with somebody so that they understand it too. That's a big issue with your practice, is getting those folks up to speed on these ideas that maybe they thought were too good to be true.
Very, very much I agree with you on that summary. And there's a passion in there that maybe you can kind of feel a little bit in this discussion. It's finding people that are passionate about doing this, because it's not implementing these strategies is not everyone can do it, but when you're passionate about doing it and you want to sincerely help somebody get to the point that they've got more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets so that they can enjoy them now and into retirement, there's no feeling like it.
So for you, it's, it amounts to you're excited about these strategies that you can help people with, where maybe a lot of other advisors out there are just lazy. They don't want to have to go down this path because it is a little more work to be able to convey these complex ideas to someone.
That is very true, yes. And many
right.
financial advisors have their own lane anyway. They've got plenty of things that they need to already know how to do.
Yeah, so this is just too much work to add another thing that seems daunting and complex.
Can be, yes.
So in our industry, there are a lot of different flavors of financial expert. What do you think is, the thing you bring to the table that people can't get elsewhere?
It would be passion for the excitement of working with someone where maybe the ideas, the concept, we use the word strategies a lot, but to help walk somebody through the journey of doing something that is proactive and has value, and watching. I love, and when I know that we're on the right path, is when somebody turns to me and says, Shaunelle, now I'm going to be able to go and do this. I'm going to be able to take this extra cruise. I'm going to be able to retire without as much worry. I don't have to worry about my funds running out. I feel really good about this. I can't wait to tell this person, my family or my friends, that this is what I'm doing, because I feel more secure. And sometimes it comes in one way or the other, but that's where the true passion is. And I think that this has happened in a lot of our industries where we lost a little bit of the caring. And I think it's happened a little bit about the way the world has shifted in the last few years, where we're not as connected as we used to be. We're connected now through technology. And that means then we have to connect somehow through here. And that's something I strive to do every day.
Well, again, it sounds like, your goal is to help somebody kind of have that epiphany in this journey with you, and then the light bulb goes off that, my gosh, I can do everything I had hoped to do with my life financially, and obviously you have a passion for helping them get there.
Very much so.
So I know you specialize in unique tax strategies. What are these untaxed retirement income plan strategies, and how can somebody actually untax their retirement without getting into too technical a conversation here?
True, because we don't want to get, too far ahead of ourselves, because part of that passion comes from the fact that each person that I work with, whether it's a couple or an individual, everybody's situation is unique. So the specific strategies, while they follow a certain pattern, like I said, utilizing what we know about the tax codes and what kind of financial tools that are out there and what special tools we have in our arsenal available to us, and putting them, and again, like we've said a few times throughout this discussion, is that matching it with the goals and matching it with what's already been done, because we're not going to wipe that slate clean. We're just going to take a magnifying glass to it, and then we're also going to put some polish on it. And those are ways that approach of untaxing those dollars is partially looking at what dollars are going to be taxed now, which ones are tax deferred, and which ones have the potential never to be taxed again.
That's great. Well, it sounds like a great process to learn more about if you're in a position with a lot of taxable dollars, to find out what's possible for them. And one way to do that is to have that initial conversation with you.
Absolutely.
So,
I look forward to that.
Speaking of, having that conversation with you, what advice would you offer someone who's considering seeking professional advice for that first time? I know that can be a scary thing for a lot of people.
I believe in this case, when you're looking for someone that is a specialist in any area, whether it's somebody owns a car that's a special import, or wants to know how to make a special dessert, and only so many people know how to do this special dessert. The idea is, in some ways, less is more. Seek out an expert. Decide that this is something that you want to investigate. Discuss with this expert, or maybe another one, but not go too far out. Find someone that you feel like you can connect with, someone that you think is intelligent, someone who's genuine and understands what the goal is. But keep it simple. The more we get noise, the more looking at social media, the more those things, there's a lot of good information. That's what gives us the idea, but it doesn't necessarily direct us to exactly the right partner for this journey.
So it sounds like maybe some of your advice is, don't get too mired in the details, because you might end up putting off actually hiring somebody that can help, as opposed to taking action now and making those changes that can make a big difference.
That's very true, and it's a very important point that you just helped make, because time, they always say time is money. So it's really true. Putting it off until tomorrow or until future can greatly change what that picture can make and what it can look like.
The best time to actually, if they're thinking about it, to do something about it, is to start that process now.
Correct.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time together here today. Is there anything else you'd like potential clients to know about you, or your approach to how you help them with a financial transformation?
I believe that we're getting there where people probably understand I'm extremely excited and very passionate about this. This is, and what we can do strategically back to that sooner than later, these are strategies that can be adopted even coming out of college. And what I want people to know is that it doesn't have to be something that is done later, but it's something that can be done at any point and be helpful for someone to find a path that reduces and untaxes their current dollars or sets them up for the future to have an untaxed or minimally taxed retirement. And that's kind of a fresh look at it too. Passionate about helping anybody find their path to the best situation that they can find.
So for people watching the show today, how can individuals that are maybe interested in your services get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Okay. Well, most of my handle is tied to either my name, Shaunelle Roeber, and that's a little bit of a mouthful, so we might have to put that on the screen or something. But my company is Blazing Star Wealth Strategies, and I can be found under most handles on Instagram and TikTok, as well as on Facebook under Blazing Star.
Well, great. I'm sure folks will be reaching out to find out more about how you can help them untax their retirement. I want to thank you for agreeing to appear as a guest on Finance Leaders and sharing some of your wisdom about how you can help people live a better life.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Finance Leaders Retirement Insights. Be sure to check out our other top advisor interviews at financeleaders.net.